Welcome back. All right, so we're going to do another redraft today, this time the 1988 draft. The 1988 draft, star-studded at the top of it. A lot of Hall of Famers, some guys who are close to Hall of Fame, maybe get in later. And the reality is, this is a draft where the Quebec Nordiques had 3 and 5, and if they'd had the power of hindsight, which of course they didn't, I think their draft would have turned out quite different, and then they wouldn't have had to have Lindros. But anyways, we're going to start off with number 1. Now, what I'm doing is I'm not wearing a jersey that is appropriate to the time that I'm doing this video, 1988. It's Minnesota North Stars drafting first, but their number 1 draft pick was Mike Modano. So, the number 1 draft pick in this draft is once again Mike Modano. I really don't see any reason Mike Modano still isn't the number 1 draft pick. Great goal scorer, really good leader, was the face of the Minnesota North Stars and then the Dallas Stars. Absolutely fantastic, remarkable career. Then at number 2, it was Trevor Linden. It's not Trevor Linden now. The number 2 draft pick going to the Vancouver Canucks, Teemu Selanne. Now, there are some who may argue, well, you know, you should have taken Selanne first and Modano second, but you want Vancouver to have Selanne. I'm not actually changing the timeline. I don't have that kind of power. I'm not a Marvel supervillain. So, Teemu Selanne at number 2, dynamic goal scorer, and yes, the idea of Selanne and Bure on the same team, woof, right? So, that would have been quite something if that had been the case. But, yeah, I'm taking Selanne at number 2 to the Vancouver Canucks, which really would have changed the 94 run. If it had been Selanne who was in the lineup instead of Linden, do the Canucks get to the Stanley Cup final if it's Selanne along with Bure? My answer to that is, I really don't think so, but that's me as a Linden fan speaking. It may very well have been that they still would have got to Stanley Cup final, might have won a Stanley Cup with Teemu Selanne out there, especially the idea of if you'd had Bure and Selanne on first and second line. Good luck. Number 3, another Hall of Famer, Rob Blake. Rob Blake, Hall of Fame defenseman, absolutely fantastic career. He was originally drafted 70th overall in that draft. And so, yeah, Blake moves all the way up to 3rd in this. And again, if Blake had played on that Quebec blue line, odds are they wouldn't have been as bad as they got. That being said, they did draft Curtis Leschyshyn in this spot. Leschyshyn is a player you're going to see during this draft, but he's not Rob Blake. So I can't argue that he's Rob Blake. I could try, but it's not going to work. Then at number 4, appropriate. Moving up from where he was originally taken at 67th, Mark Recchi is still a Pittsburgh Penguin. Recchi, of course, championships, and his championships were so far apart. I think he equaled an NHL record or set an NHL record with the distance between his Pittsburgh Stanley Cup and then the one that he had in Carolina, and then the one he had in Boston. Like there was some long time in between those Stanley Cup rings, but he did get them. So Mark Recchi, excellent player, fantastic resume, ends up going 4th overall. 5th overall, again the Quebec Nordiques. They go up and take Jeremy Roenick. Roenick was originally taken at 8th by the Blackhawks. So again, if you add Rob Blake and Jeremy Roenick to that Quebec Nordiques team, they're not going to tank. They're not going to be in the running for Lindros in all likelihood if they'd been drafting that way. That being said, again, it's hindsight being 2020. Roenick, excellent forward, lots of goals and points in his career, played a very long time. Yeah, he does rub people the wrong way, but you can't take a look at that and then not have him top 5 in the redraft, because he definitely belongs in the top 5 in the redraft in my eyes. So yeah, Blake and Roenick for the Nordiques would have been different than what they got in that draft. Number 6 to the Toronto Maple Leafs. Moving up from number 9, Rod Brind'Amour is an interesting one. So his career was a long one, and he seemed to get better as he went along. As good as he was early on, he just seemed to get better as he got older. And really, the Toronto Maple Leafs with Rod Brind'Amour would have been fun, right? But Brind'Amour doesn't end up going there. He ended up going that draft at 9th to the St. Louis Blues, who didn't hold on to him either. So that was looking back, that might have been a mistake by the Blues not holding on to Brind'Amour, but he did bounce around the league a little bit until he really found his home in Carolina. So yeah, Brind'Amour, again, the length of his career and just how fantastically he played and the effort he gave every night puts him at 6, which leaves me in a tough position because then at 7, going to the LA Kings is a player who is a better goal scorer than Brind'Amour, had a few fantastic seasons, but shorter career. Those seasons were, excellent, but they weren't as many as Brind'Amour. So this is for people who say, well, Brind'Amour should be in the Hall. I have argued for years that McGillney should be in the Hall. There you go. So Brind'Amour, McGillney, both on the board, and both players that I say, yeah, they should be in the Hall. So should Roenick. Based on his playing career, yes. And so, yeah, that's 7 players from this draft class that I think are Hall of Fame worthy. And now we're getting into the players who may not be quite Hall of Fame level, but are still very good. So McGillney, of course, 76 goals for Buffalo. Would he get that with the Kings? McGillney would have been playing with Gretzky. So, yeah, I think Gretzky and McGillney together, that could have been pretty good, right? Okay, so number 8, drafting at 8th, the Chicago Blackhawks take Canuck fans groan seeing Trevor Linden's name next to the Chicago Blackhawks. Don't worry, it's not actually happening. Again, I'm not a supervillain. Trevor Linden, excellent work ethic, really good player. His offense was underrated as well during his career. He did have some very good seasons. He had some good instincts. He was good on faceoffs. He did convert from winger to center. He was the player that really showed me you can convert a winger to center and it works. I remember railing against it at first, but yeah, I quieted pretty quickly on that because Linden was a very good center as well. So, yeah, I'm going to take Linden at number 8. And then at number 9, moving up from 68th overall, Tony Amonti. So I did a video on Tony Amonti a couple days back, and he ends up getting taken 9th in the draft instead of 68th, where he's, or no, I did the Amonti video yesterday. Just days feel long now. 68th overall, originally moves up to number 9. Interestingly enough, he was taken right after Mark Recchi. So Recchi and Amonti taken back-to-back in the draft at 67 and 68. This is why you got to watch your mid-round drafts as well and you know, see how guys do. All the attention goes to first-rounders in drafts, but very often the guys in the second, third, fourth round, there can be examples of players who are just as good. Even though the odds of finding a guy like a Recchi or an Amonti, pretty low, but still, it's there. So yeah, Amonti moves up to 9th to the St. Louis Blues. They get him instead of Brind'Amour. So still get a pretty good player there. Which brings me to 10th. 10th on the board. Going to the Winnipeg Jets. Dropping from number 7, where he was taken originally. Martin Jelena. Martin Jelena, capable of coming up with big goals when you need them. And just a really, really solid player. Again, work ethic was huge with Jelena. I never got the feeling he took a shift off. Really surprised the Quebec Nordiques waived him. Vancouver said thanks. If there'd been a hockey channel back then, I would have been saying thanks Quebec every time he got a goal. And definitely during the run the Canucks went on with him in the lineup. So Jelena ends up going at 10 to the Winnipeg Jets. He's not Teemu Selanne. But again, this is not a binding draft. Number 11. So at number 11, I'm going to take a player whose career in the NHL was a little shorter than it would have been if he'd come over right away. But what we saw of him, he was very good, and that's Valarie Kaminsky. Valarie Kaminsky was, when he played, one of my favorite players. Just very smart player. Very well trained. When the players came over from Europe, from the former Soviet Union, it was remarkable to see how, first off, they were excellent passers. Almost all of them were excellent passers. And just the intelligence with which they played the game. It really did transform hockey in North America. And guys like Kaminsky, to me, were a good example as well. Goals in key times, very smart player, didn't get caught out of position a lot. The thing is, he didn't come over as early as we might have liked. But still, once he came over, Kaminsky was excellent. And so I have him at number 11 on the draft. Number 12. Moving up from number 81. And another career that wasn't as long as I would have liked it, but Joe Juno. Joe Juno was also a player that I was a fan of during his time in Boston. When they traded him out, I understood. I was okay with it, but yeah, Joe Juno, very good player at his peak, excellent numbers overall, and so I would take Joe Juno at number 12. Again, he was originally taken 81st in that entry draft. So next on the board to the Buffalo Sabres at 13. Here's a few players I could take here, but I'm going to take... Didn't he play for Buffalo at one point too? Dmitry Kristich. Dmitry Kristich, originally taken 120th overall in the draft, now being taken 13th overall. Solid career, good career. Could score 20, 25 goals and put up some points as well. So good, solid all-around player. Not in the same category as the guys over here, but who is? Well, the guys over here are in that category. That's why they're over here. But yeah, Kristich at 13 to the Buffalo Sabres. I'm good with that. At 14 to the Philadelphia Flyers. Dropping from number 3. Curtis Lecision. Lecision was a very good defensive defenseman who played over 1,000 games in the National Hockey League. Smart, positionally sound. I was always impressed with him. And I mean, obviously, as somebody who really likes guys with fun last names, Lecision worked because it doesn't look like Lecision at all. Lecichen is how I think I pronounced it originally. I was like, what's a Lecichen? But it turns out Lecision was pretty good, so joke was on me on that one. And yeah, so I'm fine with having him 14, even though he's not as flashy as some of the guys who are still to come in this draft. Number 15. To the Washington Capitals, another good defensive player, and oddly enough, drafted by the Quebec Nordiques. He was drafted by the Quebec Nordiques, 234th overall, and that's Claude Lapoint. Claude Lapoint, good, solid player, and it may very well be that drafting that late in the draft, they're like, well, we'll take the French guy, right? It's Quebec. We'll take the French-speaking player. We'll take him, and it worked out. A late-round gamble. Lapoint ended up being very good. His career was pretty long as well. A lot of guys on this board with pretty long careers, and Lapoint was just a solid 3rd/4th line player. Again, not flashy like some of the other guys, but still very good career. Number 16, moving up from number 198. I believe I did a video on him recently as well, and that's Brett Hedikin. A lot of guys on this board I've done career videos on. Brett Hedikin, excellent player, good two-way defenseman. I don't feel like his career was as long as Lecision's, and Lecision's defensively was excellent. Same with Lapointe, but I'll take Hedikin at 16 to the New York Islanders. This was a draft where there were some misses in that first round as well. So, you know, teams would have been very happy with hindsight in this one. Hedikin at 16, I think, would have been a pick fans would have been happy with. At 17 to the Detroit Red Wings. There's only one goaltender in this first round. Stefan Fisay. Stefan Fisay, good goaltender. Decent starter at points as well. I thought he was underrated. I did. I thought Stefan Fisay was underrated. He moved on to the Kings. Played mostly a backup role there, I do believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But Fisay, good numbers over his career. Good goaltender. And again, it's the only goaltender from this draft that ends up in the first round. Wade Flaherty does not end up getting into the first round. Apologies to Wade Flaherty fans everywhere. Next up on the board, going to the Boston Bruins, defenseman Sean Hill. Sean Hill, veteran player who played a lot. He played a lot in the NHL. And again, two-way defenseman. I seem to remember him having a really expensive contract at one point in his career. But yeah, Sean Hill, I think, is a decent pick at 18 to the Boston Bruins. Again, once you get into, I would say, from 14 down, you could argue them in almost any order. Moving on to 19th. 19th on the board, another defenseman. Moving up from 76th. Keith Carney. And if you want to take Carney in your redraft as high as Lecision, I would understand that. But for the Oilers, they pick up a two-way defenseman in Carney, who played a while in the National Hockey League. And yeah, so defenseman. It's a good run on defenseman in here. 2, 3, 4. 4 out of 6 are defensemen. Is it going to be 5 out of 7? No, there are no more defensemen left on my list here. To Montreal, moving up from number 163, Marty Mckinnis. Marty Mckinnis, center. As I remember, pretty good on the draws. Had some offensive upside as well. Played well both ends of the ice. So Montreal picks up a forward there as a pretty good utility guy. And then at 21, going to the Calgary Flames, Tim Taylor, or as we called him because of home improvement, Tim the Toolman Taylor. So the Toolman goes to the Calgary Flames at 21. Interesting thing with this draft is it might have been one of the toughest drafts, period. So also honorable mention to Steve Hines. Steve Hines would have been the number 22 pick if we'd gone to 22. But this draft featured Ty Domi, Rob Ray, Tony Twist, Dennis Vial, and Link Gates, just as 5 examples. And I thought about Ty Domi. He played over 1,000 games in the NHL, but he was never a prominent forward. He just played a long time. He knew his role and he played it well. You could argue him over Tim Taylor if you want, but to me, Tim Taylor, for what he was able to provide in his career, I would give him the edge on Ty Domi. But yeah, that's a pretty good list, and it made me think, what would be the toughest draft? So if I went through and I looked at entry drafts, which one would have the most tough guys, the most brawlers, the roughest bunch? Which draft could beat up all the other drafts? This one would be pretty good. So when you got guys like Link Gates, and if you don't know who the missing link is, that's too bad, because Link Gates was an interesting one. And yeah, so there you go. The 1988 entry draft redraft is in the books. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.